So you had another question.
Yes. I had oh, so the second question was, why do certain cultures view certain traits that boys show as feminine? And I gave the example of, like, we were talking about like hugs and things like that. Why
Right.
some people would view, like, if a boy gives like hugs to people, like, it's, like, hugs to people is viewed as feminine, or even being a certain amount of caring to being a feminine trait. Where I kind of don't see it as that. I do see more of, like, you know, if it's with the family, you can give a hug, but like stranger danger, you don't give other people hugs and things like that. But I do see, like, people like say, oh, that's too girly, or oh, that's too, depending on like what certain behaviors like little boys start to show.
Well, I think it deals with different races.
Mm-hmm.
As I established before, like a lot of African American culture, we dealt through with a lot of stuff, so we had to be strong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we came from the boat over to the United States, and then we suffered through about 400 years worth of slavery. After that, we seen people, friends die on the boats, family die on the boats because they were unsanitary conditions. People die from being just in that compacted bow. You know what I mean? So it's like everything was as bad from the ship all the way up to the United States where we was working in the fields.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we had to be strong. You know what I mean? Because any sign of weakness, you know, the enemy will prey on that.
Yeah.
So I think more of it I think more of it is like you said, the culture thing. I believe that. It might rather regardless if it's wrong or right, because I believe that like you should be able to hug your children.
Yeah.
Your children should be able to hug you. We talked about a situation where I was going doing that and I got pretty much punished for that, being a
Yeah.
light on that. But it's a situational culture thing, you know, and in the African American culture, it just feels like we have to be stronger. We have to put on this facade of strength.
Yeah.
I mean, even when we go with the Black Panther, like even when we do the Black Fist, we signal strength. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Everything with us has to be strength. As a man, the way I was raised, we're supposed to be the providers. We're supposed to
Right.
be the guardians of our family. We're supposed to be the leaders of our family as a man. That's the way I was taught. Not saying women can't be those things, but it was definitely taught from our dad that we're supposed to be the providers, the leaders, and the guardians of our family.
Yeah.
When somebody comes at our doorstep with BS, we're supposed to be the forefronts to protect our family from that BS. And I've seen you see me done that a couple of times when where our house got vandalized, and I was the one that went out there.
Yeah.
I didn't say, "Oh, you go out there." No, that's not how that works. Even though you probably would beat them up better than I would, but it's just that's the mentality of it. So it's like a situation mentality.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people, when they see their sons or children or sons hugging
Yeah.
and stuff that shows a sign of weakness. I disagree with that because I hug my son because hugging a hug is a trait that I have never seen where a hug had a negative effect on people.
Yeah.
I mean, I just hugged you when I came home from work because I had a bad day.
Me too.
And you had a bad day. And you said that felt great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I felt like I wanted no more.
Right, and like when I came to see you, I gave you a hug because I'm like, "What's that good?" You know what I mean? It's like a hug is a. I never seen a hug that was a bad trait, especially with somebody you love.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean it could be bad if you don't know the person and this dude just hug you, but I'm just like a person that you know. I never seen a situation where a hug had never had a positive effect.
Yeah.
Better yet, when my son won a game, he gave me a hug. You know what I mean? And I was okay with that because, see, like I said, but see, at that my time before that, it was not that great.
Yeah.
You know, I was not taught that a hug could be great. It's just like it's a lot of the things that were taught. You got to think about what they were going through at that time.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, when like I said about the slavery, you had to be strong. You had to wear that face to be of strength.
Yeah, we just realized that probably your dad, great grandparents were probably slaves.
Right, so
if
it's
we,
like
go back
right, because my grandfather was in World War II.
Yeah,
so you
more than likely his parents were either weren't like their parents were probably slaves or they just was on the borderline of it.
Right, so it's like, you know, it's a situation of lessons where you have to teach your children how to act.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, there's laws of the land of how you're supposed to act on the land of the United States or wherever country you are. Yeah. There's laws that you have to abide by in order to not get punished. But at the same time, there's unwritten laws within our culture about how somebody should be acting.
Yeah.
So, you know, regardless if you think today that our culture from back in the day was wrong, because a lot of people don't like spanking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where the Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. So there has to be some kind of punishment when a child does something wrong. But however, digress.
Mm-hmm.
There's even though people don't agree with some of the unwritten rules of how a person should conduct, people got to understand what they were going through.
Yeah,
during that period of time. So it's like, yeah. So times has changed over time.
Yeah.
So now, like a lot of it is, you know, a lot of it, the stuff that kids do is viewed as, you know, feminine. But like I said, who's saying that? Is it the people in this generation, or is it the people from the past generations?
So probably for the past.
Right.
I realized, like for instance, that's the one thing we talked about is our generation was part of, like, that's why our generation, there's so many people with anxiety issues and like depression, is because we were the generation that went through 9/11. We remembered a life prior to 9/11.
Right.
We remembered a life before Columbine.
Right. And I was in school when that happened, and then I was in college, and I was in college when 9/11 happened. Better yet, my mom drove me to school the day before, and she missed the incident at the Pentagon by like 6 hours.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that happened in New York, my mom had a job interview at the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
Where she was going to get the job at the World Trade Center, and maybe about a few weeks before that happened, they called my mom and the job was turned down. She got turned down on the job. Oh, she was blessed, but no, I'm not saying that.
It's not even all that. It's more of, you know, it's not even saying that. Like, people, when everything that happens for a reason.
Right.
And it's one of those things where people have to look at it like we lost a lot of people along the way. But we were literally like the generation prior to us. That's what we were talking about, like your dad's generation. They experienced segregation. They experienced, like, your dad heard and saw Martin Luther King speak. He knew of Malcolm X. Like, these people were people that existed during his time.
And not to mention, but not only about like the what I'm trying to say, the figures of black movement, the, you know, of the black movie. Yeah, he was alive when he saw these people, but he also was alive when Martin Luther King got killed, Malcolm X got killed.
Yeah.
Also, not just to talk about the black figures of our. His favorite president was always John F. Kennedy.
That was his president.
And the moment he got killed, it really
rattled
his cage, right?
Rattled the U.S.
Right.
And not to mention, he was also part of the draft for
Vietnam.
So
it's like he witnessed the history. I'm rereading the history, but he actually was there when the history happened.
Yeah.
So it's like there's different lessons that you have to go through. Now, is life fair? No, life is not fair. There's some things that I teach my kids that maybe in the future generation they might be considered wrong. Like for instance, I talked about this spare the rod, spoil the child. You know what I mean? But at the same time, there's some rules that I talked about. Like what I was just talking about to you earlier. I don't ever go up to a woman, even in a conversation at my job, and just touch her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I tell my sons, you don't ever touch a woman when you're out there on the streets. Let the woman touch you. Therefore, you know the laws, you know how she feels about you.
The consent
law. Because some women might not take it the right way. You might think it's a term of endearment. They might think it's sexual harassment. So it's like, even though that might not be the case, they might think that's the wrong way to think. But that's the rules that I was raised on. And that's the rules that I learned in my generation of how not to get in trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Those are rules. I think that's the thing. Each generation has their own set of rules.
Right.
Like you said, spare the rod, spoil the child. We view that as more of there has to be a consequence when a child does something wrong.
Right. It's not just necessarily spanking.
Yeah. Where the previous generation, the automatic thing was to spank a child.
Right.
Where now it's like
so now there's alternatives.
Yes.
Because sometimes spanking does not change to correct the child the rate that you wanted to correct. Exactly. And I learned the hard way doing that.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes, taking something away has more effect on than just the spanking.
Or even just explaining things to kids because they don't know.
Right. Like they don't know. Like, like I said, my middle child has autism. So it's like that's that same method of, thinking that's going to work on one child is not going to work on him.
Yeah.
So it's like there's generational lessons that you learn. Like I said, I don't ever go touch a woman, even like a friend of mine, friends of mine, unless it's like y'all that I know. I don't go out there and give people hugs. And like we went to a baseball game with my two of my favorite ladies that I ever met. I give them a hug, but other than that, I don't go tap on them or anything because it's just that's the way I was taught.
Yeah.
Not only through my dad, but just in the situations of life. Because you don't know what the other person is going through to think but that might not be a term of endearment, but it might be harassment.
Yeah.
But that's just many examples. So it's like, I think a lot of this stuff is a generational thing. I do believe there's some things that I don't like about the new generation. But at the same time, I'm the old generation. So it's like, even though
we're supposed to look at it as like, when that's the thing, it's like and I think a lot of people frame it as, oh, these people are doing it wrong. Well, this is their movement. This is their, like, people had a real issue with hippies and things of that nature.
Right.
Like, this is their moment in this time frame. Now there would probably be another swing the opposite direction. Like, how there's a pendulum swing?
Right.
Well, right now we're in the hippie era where, peace, free love.
Right.
Everything is fluid and whatnot. But there'll be another pendulum swing the opposite way. And it's just we're viewing it as older adults.
Right.
Because that's where I'm like, a lot of people, I hear a lot of like comments and things like that. I'm like, I get it. I understand. But in the lens of the context of the current wave of things, and that sounds like a word salad, but hear me out. In the context of the current times, it makes sense why things are going in certain directions.
Right.
Now the only thing is it right? We won't know until the next wave occurs
Well,
and we see the aftermath of what happens.
And then you also got to understand, you can't always just look at everything in the cardinal sense, in the physical sense. You also have to look at it in the spiritual sense as well. So, like, Bible always says that we're not wrestling against flesh or blood, but against principalities, against, the evilness of Satan.
Yeah.
So you have to establish the generational changes that's going on. Is it something that is of just a carnal thing, or is it something that's as in a spiritual battle between God and Satan that's causing these changes to be detrimental to the generations that come?
Yeah.
So my thing is this. Reason why I said that along with what you just said is you got to look at it. Is it of God or is it of Satan? That's pretty much what it comes down to. So when I see a kid that hugs somebody because he's happy, regardless if I wasn't taught that, is that so bad?
No.
I don't think so. So like, there's some things that kids do that you can tell that there is a demonic push.
Yeah.
But there's some things that are not. So you're just gonna have to determine which is really good for your kid. That's just the bottom line. And that's all I got to say about that.
Parents just need to parent, and
that's what it comes down to. Parents need to parent. I mean, like it's just like what you said. It's just like how when you teach your kid how to drive. You teach him your way. This is how I do it. But eventually, when he gets his license, you're gonna drive it the way you're gonna drive it. Yeah. When I got my trucking license, I was taught to to drive it like this and keep just like. I think it was like 10 to 2 or 9 to 3 or something like that on the hand position. But this is how you turn. This is how you turn around the corner with the tractor trailer. But in all essence, once you get that license and you're on your own, you're going to drive it according to how you see fit.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
At the end of the day. So regardless, my thing is, as long as it is not detrimental to your soul, and as long as it's not following the realms of the enemy, and as long as it building something positive in your life, and as long as it falls along the guidance of Christ, I'm okay with it, man. So if my son wants to give me a hug because he won the game, give it to me.
Yeah.
Because it breaks the stigmatism of what I went through when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So. And that's all I got to say about that. So I just wanted to, I know it's been a long night, but that was a good question you asked. That's why I wanted to continue that flow. So that's it for us today. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversations that we have. Stay tuned, stay alert, and always remember, you are the movement. And just continue to have the open communications with your spouse, and continue to grow in relationships, because relationships with your spouse is not the only thing that needs to be strong. Like we said before, be strong with only your spouse, but be strong with your kids as well, and be strong with everybody. As friends, we're supposed to be bonded together, like Voltron.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Take care. Have a good week, all right? Peace.